Good morning. Welcome to Mosaic. I'm Ron Swisher. It's always a joy and a privilege to host Mosaic on behalf of my co-host, Elizabeth Egdale, and our mentor, the late Hugh Burroughs. I want to mention Hugh Burroughs in particular because Hugh and I started ministry together in 1972. I was the pastor of not Easter Hill, but Elmhurst United Methodist Church, and he was the pastor of Hillside Presbyterian Church. And down the street was Allen Temple Baptist Church. And the pastor at that time was Dr. J. Alfred Smith, Sr. He was the president of the East Oakland clergy. Father J. Matthews, who we just lost not long ago, was the vice president. I was the second vice president. Hugh was the secretary. And of course, we were mentored by the great Senior and all that he did. Junior, I met later, and of course, had the privilege of marrying Junior and his wife, Elaine. They reminded me there of that at their 100th anniversary of Allen Temple last year, and 40-something years now. And then I moved to Fairfield about 8 years ago, and I heard this buzz going on that you should hear Dr. Jackie. Dr. Jackie will preach the paint off the sanctuary. So I was there in Fairfield, and one Friday night I came to the Good Friday services at Beebe Memorial.
Oh, wow.
And I don't remember what word she preached 8 years ago, but she did leave some paint on the sanctuary, but it was definitely a dynamic, electrifying message. So today, we're honored to have the senior pastor of Allen Temple Baptist Church, the first elected pastor, a woman pastor, senior pastor of Allen Temple, Reverend Dr. Jacqueline Thompson. Great to have you.
It is great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Reginald Lyles, your deacon.
Yes.
And, Brothers to Brother.
Yes.
Reverend Charlotte Williams and Reverend Long.
Yes.
I had to make the contact because I knew you're all over the world.
But they made it, and I'm here.
They made it, so I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so
Tell
much.
us a little bit about your calling, because it's just phenomenal to have you the pastor.
My goodness, calling to the church or calling to ministry?
Ministry first.
Calling to ministry. Well, I'm the daughter of a pastor.
Okay.
My father, who recently passed in December, was Reverend Dr. M.T. Thompson. He pastored Berkeley Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Berkeley
I didn't know
for
that.
40 years. Yeah.
Yes.
So I've grown up a church girl all of my life and kind of went through the things that young adults go through where you start to question faith and theology and how it lines up with things that you're experiencing in life and things that are happening in the world. And I began seeking a deeper relationship with God. I started teaching at McClymonds High School in West Oakland. And
what they're going through right now.
Yeah, they're going through, and we need to be in protest about that.
That's right.
And protest about that. But encountered some kids who I realized that my desire, which was to go into law and politics, was not enough.
I did read that.
That they needed a transformation that was deeper than anything external. And so the only thing that I could impart to them besides what we did in the classroom was what had sustained me up to that point, and that was my faith and my understanding of who God was and that sense of hope. And so I started a gospel choir. And because, you know, legally, you're not supposed to say the name or have Bible study, and the public schools will do all of that. And so we did a lot of character work and had a lot of deep conversation. And I think it was through that process of ministering to them that the Lord began to speak to me about proclaiming to larger audiences. And so, to my surprise, I didn't realize that Dr. Smith Sr. had been watching me as well. And so when I went to him and told him I was feeling this burden and that I had had this experience, I had gone to Acts Full Gospel with Bishop Bob Jackson. To their evening communion service, and he preached a sermon on Jonah, on people who were running from the gospel. And so I was there that evening, and every time he said Jonah, I heard Jackie.
Oh, how about that?
And so he said, if anyone senses a call, come to the altar. And before I knew it, I don't know how it happened. I don't remember walking. I don't remember getting up. But I was at the altar, and I said yes to that sense of God that I had. And the rest is kind of history. I talked to Dr. Smith, and he said, we've been waiting for you.
How about that?
And so I preached my trial sermon probably August of, it would have been 25 years ago this year.
So you didn't have
August
to go into the well.
1995. No.
You didn't get to the well. You were ready.
Preached my trial sermon later that year, August 95, and then immediately moved to D.C. to go to Howard School of Divinity.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's an opening segment, and that's going to keep us truly interested all the way.
Wonderful.
So we'll come back in a moment.
Wonderful.
Please join us for Reverend Dr. Jackie Thompson, who's now the pastor of Allen Temple Baptist Church, a historic church, 100-year anniversary. Welcome back to Mosaic. If you heard Dr. Thompson, you had to be excited about her call to ministry. She's pastor of Allen Temple Baptist Church. Tell us more about what that's been like for you.
Pastoring at Allen Temple?
Yes.
Actually, it's been a joy.
Great.
I was raised at Allen Temple. I came there when I was 12 years old, looking for a church because I was, for lack of a better phrase, just sick of going to church. And that was during the era where you went to church all day. And so there was Sunday school, there was the morning service, there was a 3 o'clock service, you came back for a 6 o'clock service. And at 12, I was not making the connection as to why all of this worship experience was occurring and what it was supposed to mean for my life. And so luckily I had a mother who wasn't so committed to her church that she didn't think it was important for me to have a relationship with God. And so we traveled and we toured and we visited and we landed in the balcony at Allen Temple Church. And this short man with a kufi on and a deep voice who talked slow got up, and I will never forget it. He preached Matthew 28:18 through 20, go ye therefore. And at 12, I understood. The sermon was about the relevance of our faith in God, and it meant that we were supposed to do something, that we weren't just supposed to be sitting in the pews in celebration, that our faith should drive us to action. And so I joined. And so I was raised at Allen Temple. So pastoring there has kind of been surreal. It's my life coming full circle back to the place where I started, the place that seeded in me. And so I feel blessed for the opportunity to be able to give back.
Have you experienced, the saying that prophets are not honored in their own country?
You know what? Not really. I think the transition process was a bit testy, and I think people were surprised by that because Allen Temple has always been a supporter of women in ministry. I saw my first woman preacher there. But I think people can be challenged by the idea of authority.
Right.
And since they had never had female authority, wondering what that would look like. But I cannot say I have no horror stories to tell. The people have been loving, they've been amazing, they've been kind, but we're still in our honeymoon stage. We'll see. When we get to year 7, we'll see if we have that 7-year itch.
Well, in the 70s when I started, I always saw Allen Temple as a mega church. It's still mega, but how's the membership there, you say?
Our membership on the rolls are about 2,800 now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're about 2,800.
With people moving out, that's still a good number.
Absolutely, and with many churches that are struggling with attendance in the area and losing members. So we feel blessed. We're very, very blessed.
Well, my friend James and I have gone a number of times. One time we came and you were at Love Center.
Yes.
Why were you there?
I was at Love Center because their pastor had gone. And so they were also experiencing transition, and they were asking pastors in the city, would they come and support and encourage the people? Because he was a new pastor. I think he had only been there a couple of years. And so they had been inviting me, and I hadn't been able to do it. But that particular Sunday, knowing that he had left and knowing how important pastoral leadership is, I went to encourage the people.
That's great.
Yeah.
Bishop Hawkins and Oh Happy Day. And
yes, and we actually just had his sister, Lynette Hawkins Stevens, in concert for a Black History concert this past Sunday.
That's right. This past Sunday we were there, and we heard your great message, Preserve for a Purpose.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Preserve for a Purpose was the closing sermon for Black History Month to remind African American people that out of everything that we've been through and the success that we've experienced, that God has kept us for a reason. That it's not just for us to rest on our laurels or to live in our particular socioeconomic classes, but that we've been blessed so that we can go and be a blessing to other people and to bring another generation along with us. And so reminding us that we were kept this far for a purpose, and that's to expand God's kingdom.
To have the speakers like you did, that was a great idea.
Because for me, sometimes Black History Month can become pigeonholed, and we focus on the known superstars, the Martin Luther Kings, the Rosa Parks, the Fannie Lou Hamers, all the names we hear before. But we were a people before we were enslaved.
That's right.
And we have a rare opportunity to lift up what was that history. So it was important to me to make the connection between Africans in diaspora and the actual continent. And we also have members who are from those nations, many of the nations that were lifted up, and I wanted them to feel affirmed as well.
Well, we definitely felt lifted.
Good.
We definitely felt. Now tell us a little about your style of preaching. I was not being facetious when I talked about paint off the sanctuary, because people have been electrified by your preaching.
Oh, bless
What is
you.
your methodology and approach to preaching?
Well, here's a secret that the world will now know. I am one of the few who made it through seminary and I didn't take a preaching class.
What?
And the reason being is because I started preaching my first year, and the dean of preaching at Howard University School of Divinity, Dean Evans Crawford, God rest his soul, I preached at his mother-in-law's Baptist Church in Rhode Island. And she sent him the tape. And so when I got back to D.C., he said, I heard you've been around the country preaching. And he said, you don't need a class. And he signed me out of it. And so I think my preaching style kind of has developed over the years. And I kind of start with what is the one takeaway I want people to leave with.
Okay.
And I build the sermon from there. Because for me, preaching is about transformation. Not just transformation of the mind, but transformation of behavior, transformation of understanding. And so I kind of start with a behavioral purpose, and that's something that Dr. Frank Thomas, who actually has the only PhD in the country in preaching, lifted up in his book.
Dangerous Sermons.
Indeed. He's amazing. He's an amazing man.
Yeah, that's right.
And so in his book, like To Never Quit Praising Him, he lifts up a behavioral purpose statement. So what do you want to be different about the hearers as a result of the engagement? And so I've kind of taken that as a methodology that I build from.
I love the bio. It said that you have deep scholarly biblical scholarship combined with girlfriend wit.
With girlfriend wit, yes.
How do you describe that?
Well, I am an East Oakland girl. And so in many ways, still down to earth, practical, touchable. And I think sometimes in churches, we lose a generation because we're not able to speak to their current day. And so girlfriend wit has to do with being able to identify with people where they are. So it's not just a heady approach to the gospel. It's not a bunch of hermeneutics and homiletics and words that people can't understand, but actually trying to minister like Jesus, who walked among the people, who knew the vernacular, who lived the life, and tried to make the gospel relevant to them. And he knew that, you know, doing Judaism in its formal sense, how he may have learned it, was not going to work, so he told parables. Right. So his parables are my girlfriend wit.
I like that. I like that. Well, we've loved coming. And now that I'm retired, you'll see me out there
We're glad to see you. We'll have to rope you into some things, too. 47 years of wisdom.
Well, I love to just receive right now.
I understand.
But, I'm with Brothers to Brother.
Oh, that's a good thing.
That's right.
They were major supporters during my process.
That's fantastic.
So I'm so appreciative of that.
We're going to take another break, and I want to hear more.
Okay.
Okay. Please join us with Dr. Thompson. Welcome back to Mosaic. You talked about Howard.
Yes.
And you did a lot of work there in D.C.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that work.
I did. I left here in '95 and went to Howard University School of Divinity and studied under greats like Dr. Kane Hope Felder and Dr. Jean Rice, Dr. Cheryl Sanders, Dr. Dolores Carpenter. It really was a renaissance time in terms of theological education. While I was there, I served on staff at Shiloh Baptist Church of Washington,
I did read
which
that.
is a congregation that was founded by slaves, so they have a rich history, also have a social justice DNA. And so I served as their youth pastor for a number of years and built that program and model up to scale, and it became nationally recognized, and then shifted because DC at that time was not the DC we know today. So where Shiloh is located, there were a lot of needs in the community, and so I wrote a grant for teen mothers that was funded, and then I became director of their Family Life Center Foundation, which is a program that does the outreach services of the church.
Though you were extremely successful, what I read, your call to preaching and teaching became prevailed.
Yes, it did.
I'm glad it did.
It did.
So, where did you get your doctorate?
I got my doctorate at Fuller in Pasadena.
Okay.
Yeah, in African American leadership.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
And so that's where you combine the emphasis on our roots.
Yes.
And of course, what you're doing into community too.
And the transformational role of the church. And so that was an opportunity for me to kind of blend my concept around the role of the church in the community and the way it needs to be transformed to reach another generation. Because we're living in a time where many of our young people, they are anti-institution, any institution, particularly institutionalized religion. But the reality is that faith and institutions have brought us this far as a people. And so we have to figure out how can we make them relevant to the next generation that's coming behind us.
Do you think about running for office yourself?
You know, people ask me that. I've thought about it. That was my desire before ministry.
I read
and
that.
so it's not something that I think about now, but I'm not opposed to it. I think at the time, and I think even now, my influence is probably greater in this capacity than in actual political office. But you never know what the future holds. You can never say never when you're called.
One of my predecessors at Easter Hill, Booker T. Anderson, was mayor of Richmond.
Oh, really?
So I was pushed a little bit in that direction, but I decided I could only do one job.
Right.
I could not do these. But some pastors are very good at that.
Yeah, they are very good at it. But I think right now I'm enjoying this posture because it gives me the opportunity to critique the things that I see that are wrong. And I think sometimes when you are actually functioning in office, you lose your ability to do that because you're considered a part of the institution.
That's true.
And so right now, I'm comfortable with remaining that voice that says, you know what? You know, have you considered this? Have you considered that? There are some people that are being left behind, and you all need to focus
the
on that.
gadfly.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
My mentor in community organizing was Paul Cobb.
Oh.
And he's still around.
Yes, he is.
You know.
And he's full of rich history as well.
That's true.
Full of rich history
And that's
as well.
the term he'd always use, gadfly.
Yes.
He wanted to be that.
And it's necessary. And he's able to do that with publishing in the Oakland
That's
Post.
right.
We get
The
it every
Post,
Sunday.
what, 9 papers, I think it is. Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that background. So you continue to, do you still sing?
A little bit here and there.
Because I heard you had a choir that you started.
Yeah, but you know, it's as a part of worship, not as an artist or anything like that.
okay.
Yeah, my dad did. He was a recording artist.
Oh, that's right, Dr. Thompson. Right. So with all that richness, you felt called for the purpose, as you said.
Yeah.
Preserved for the purpose.
Yes, but not for the pastorate. I didn't want a pastor.
Okay.
Oh no. I didn't want a pastor. I think I had seen so much. It's a tremendous job. It's a labor-intensive job, and it never ends.
Never ends.
Right, but I think, again, when God calls you to it, I wanted a specific, distinct, clear call, because I think there is a call to preaching, and then I believe there is a call to the pastorate, because it requires a different skill set. And so once I was confirmed that God was actually calling me to pastor, I undoubtedly said yes. And so
Like this past Sunday, you probably were there from 8 to 6
until
or 7.
About 7.
But that didn't count the hours you had to prepare.
Right, exactly. But you do it with joy. And so
Yes,
it really
ma'am.
is true that when you find what it is you're born to do, it doesn't feel like work. So that is true, even in ministry.
Right. And so what is your staff like? I know you have to have some help.
Yeah, we have some help. Allen Temple had always been a multi-staff church, and so we have 60 lay ministers.
Good.
And we also have staff ministers who cover different areas, like Reverend Williams, who's with me today, and so she
Right.
covers communication. We have an administrative manager, and we're going to be building out more staff in the future.
Now, I was there. We saw a baptism.
Yes.
But you didn't baptize.
I did not.
It was 2 or 3 others.
It was deacons, and it was some of our other clergy. Because when you have a large associate ministerial staff, you want to give them opportunity to be able to exercise their gifts, and it also preserves you. So since I was preaching, I didn't want to baptize in the pool, run, dry off, change clothes. You have 60 ministers. Use somebody else. God didn't just call you.
That's good.
So it gives them opportunity to exercise their
good.
gifts as well. Same with communion. So on Communion Sunday, you will see a lot of our associate ministers who are leading in that worship as well.
What about memorial services, funerals, weddings?
They're all divided.
Okay. Do you have to do much of them at all?
I do some, and then some of them are divided within the rest of the clergy and staff.
Yeah, I was just concerned when I saw all.
No, I have
So
great
much
help.
work.
Great help. And so I stand on the legacy of great leaders who built wonderful organizations and provided opportunities for others. And so we're just continuing in that vein.
Well, it sounds like you have great discernment and leadership skills. So when it comes to having that large staff, it seems like you're able to manage it pretty well.
I inherited good people, and so I take no credit. I inherited good people that are already trained, and so my role is to kind of take them into the next generation and to bring another generation along.
Well, we have one more segment.
Yes.
If there's anything we left out, let's cover it in that next segment.
Okay, you let me know.
Thank you. Please join us, Dr. Thompson. In this last segment with Dr. Thompson, we want to look at her entire ministry again, but Allen Temple's celebrated their 100th anniversary, centennial. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Oh, it was amazing. It was an opportunity for the congregation to reflect on where God had brought them from. It was an opportunity for us to celebrate Smith leadership, because their combined
They were there.
leadership with the Father and the Son represents 50 years.
That's right.
So we were able to dedicate a street name to J. Alfred
Oh, I didn't
Smith
know that.
Sr.
Oh, good.
We celebrated the retirement of J. Alfred Smith Jr. We hosted some of the best preachers in the nation, from Reverend Tracy
McMickle.
Blackman, Dr. Marvin McMickle, Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright, all prophets in their own right, Dr. Freddie Haynes.
Oh, we missed him.
Celebrated a wonderful gala at the Rotunda, and so it was really an amazing time, and I think it re-energized the congregation and gave them an opportunity to reconnect. It was a blessed time.
Now, do you have many members commuting?
We do.
Because
We do. We have a good number that live in the area, but for the most part, we're a commuter church.
Yes.
Which is different from when I joined. When I joined, many of the people lived in the neighborhood. Now the neighborhood is predominantly Hispanic.
Right, in Taylor Memorial in West Oakland, we experienced the same. And so people are commuting. But there is tremendous ministry going on. My friend and colleague, and I mentored Reverend Jenkins.
Who I just met.
Yes, and so he's doing great work there. And they have to commute, but they stay there and produce. And so in our last minute or so, what would you give as the advice for pastors in that urban area and urban centers and seeing our members move away? What would you say the best way to galvanize ministry in some way?
I think the best way to galvanize ministry, no matter where you are, is around mission and relationship.
Okay.
The people of Allen Temple are committed to their mission, and they're committed to one another. It's not just coming in on Sunday morning for celebration. It's everything that happens during the week, whether it's feeding the homeless, whether it's dealing with human trafficking, whether it's planning activities for outreach in the community. That's instilled in our DNA. That is who we are as a people, speaking out on behalf of those that are voiceless. And so the people who are committed to that, there's no distance that they won't drive in order for that to be maintained. In addition, they've maintained relationships with one another. And so they've been in each other's weddings, and they've helped raise each other's children, and they want to see their grandchildren be a part. So if you can build ministries that cultivate relationship and connection among your members, and then carry that out to work in the community, I think you'll have success. And to remember that success is not size. Success is impact.
Amen.
Jesus had 12, and he changed the world. We're on Mosaic today because of the ministry of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
So if we keep that in mind, then I think we'll find good success in urban environments.
Well, the Smiths left a great successor.
Oh, bless you.
And
Thank you.
you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad we got a hold of you.
I am too.
Because you are a blessing to all the people,
Thank
I'm
you.
sure, that hear you weekly and throughout your ministry and different parts of the country and world. I know you've preached.
I have.
And continue it.
Thank you, Reverend Swisher. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for joining us. The Lord is our light and salvation is my favorite scripture, 27 Psalms, and that we're blessed in the land of the living.
Yes.
Not just when we die. This ministry is for life abundant and full and complete now. And Dr. Thompson adds to that as Allen Temple Church does. Thank you for being with us. God bless you.